I cheated on my loving husband and married my affair partner, only for karma to strike back when my best friend married him instead. I built a career telling people how to fix their relationships. 300,000 downloads per episode of Real Talk with Stella. Women called me their relationship guru. I did keynote speeches about authenticity, choosing passion over comfort, never settling for less than you deserve. And I meant every word. That's what makes this so much worse. 5 years ago, I was married to George, high school history teacher, the kind of guy who made pancakes every Sunday and actually remembered how you liked your coffee. He planned surprise weekend trips to vineyards and left sticky notes on the bathroom mirror with terrible historical puns. You're more valuable than all the gold in Fort Knox. That kind of sweet. It made me want to crawl out of my skin. Don't get me wrong, George was good, patient, present, the type of man your mother prays you'll marry. But good doesn't make your pulse race. Good doesn't make you feel like you're actually alive. After 5 years, our life had become a predictable loop. Sunday pancakes, Friday movie nights, the same 3 restaurants on rotation. I felt like I was suffocating under a warm blanket I was supposed to be grateful for. I wanted to feel something that wasn't comfortable. That's how Clark Hendricks walked into my life. I met him at a tech conference in Austin where I was the keynote speaker. Crypto CEO, sharp enough to cut glass, the kind of dangerous smile that should come with a warning label. He sat front row during my talk about choosing yourself first, and afterward, he sent champagne to my hotel room with a note, "To the woman who tells everyone else how to live, when will you start?" I should have thrown the bottle away. Instead, I texted the number on the card. 3 months of hotel rooms, burner phones, and adrenaline highs that made me feel like I was finally the main character in my own life. Clark didn't do sweet. He did intense. Midnight phone calls, last-minute flights, the kind of attention that felt like spotlights after years of ambient lighting. George never suspected. Why would he? I was the relationship expert. I knew all the signs. I was too smart to get caught. The divorce conversation happened at Angelo's, our favorite Italian place, which should have told me something about how much of a coward I was. George had just ordered the risotto he always got when I said, "I need more than this." He put down his fork. More than what? More than safe. More than predictable. I need passion, George. I need to feel alive. He stared at me for a long time. Long enough that the waiter awkwardly refilled our water twice. Then he just nodded, pulled out his wallet, paid the bill, and left. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. Didn't fight for me. That silence gutted me more than any screaming match could have. But I told myself it proved my point. If he really loved me, wouldn't he have fought harder? 6 months later, I married Clark at a courthouse downtown. Small ceremony, just us and 2 witnesses we pulled off the street. I posted one photo on Instagram, our hands intertwined, my ring catching the light. Caption, "Finally living my truth." The comments poured in. "So brave. You deserve this." Relationship goals. My podcast numbers spiked. Apparently, authenticity sells. Clark and I moved into his loft in the Arts District. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, the kind of place that felt like it belonged in a magazine. Everything I thought I wanted. Everything George and I couldn't afford. The first month was electric. The second month, I started noticing things. How Clark was always on his phone. How he'd disappear for investor meetings at midnight. How when I asked questions, he'd flip it back on me. "Why are you being so controlling? I thought you wanted passion, not interrogation." But I'd burned my old life to the ground for this. I'd become the woman who left a good man for excitement. I couldn't admit I'd made a mistake. Not to my listeners, not to my friends, not to myself. So I recorded episodes about trusting your instincts and choosing yourself, while ignoring every instinct screaming that I'd chosen wrong. 4 months into the marriage, I found the first hotel receipt in his jacket pocket. When I confronted him, Clark laughed, actually laughed, and said it was for a business meeting. "You're being paranoid, babe. Maybe you should talk to someone about your trust issues." I almost believed him. I wanted to believe him, because the alternative meant admitting that I'd destroyed my marriage, my credibility, and my self-respect for a man who was exactly what George's silence had been trying to tell me he'd be. I thought I'd finally gotten everything I deserved. I had no idea I was right. The hotel receipt incident should have been my wake-up call. Instead, I became an expert at explaining away red flags. Relationship counselor, heal thyself, right? 6 months into the marriage, I was living in a stranger's apartment with a man I barely recognized. Clark was home maybe 3 nights a week. The other nights? Investor calls with Asia. Time zones, babe, at 2 a.m. Every time I asked questions, I was controlling or insecure or exactly like his ex. The gaslighting was textbook. I literally taught classes on this. But knowing the patterns doesn't make you immune when you're desperate to prove you didn't ruin your life for nothing. Our joint credit cards started maxing out. I'd check the statements and find charges at hotels I'd never been to, restaurants in cities Clark claimed he wasn't visiting. When I brought it up, he had explanations for everything. Strategic investments in crypto ventures. Networking dinners with potential partners. You don't understand how business works at this level. Then he changed all the passwords on our accounts. For security, he said. We got flagged for suspicious activity. I'll add you back once it's cleared up. He never did. I should have left then, but I kept recording podcast episodes about red flags and boundary setting while ignoring every single one in my own life. My producer started commenting on how distracted I seemed. You doing okay, Stella? Your energy's been off. Just tired, I'd say. Wedding planning wore me out. We'd been married for 6 months. There was no wedding to plan. The breaking point came on a Tuesday at 3 a.m. Clark stumbled in drunk, reeking of perfume that definitely wasn't mine. I was awake because I'd been going through his laptop. He'd left it open on the kitchen counter, probably too wasted to remember to close it. I found exactly what I expected and somehow still wasn't prepared for. Texts with multiple women. Photos I won't describe. Transaction records for escort services going back 8 months. Some from before our wedding. When he walked in, I had the laptop open on the dining table. Want to explain this? He looked at the screen, then at me, then he started laughing. Not nervous laughter. Genuine amusement. You really thought this was going somewhere, didn't you? I stood up. You're using our money for? Your money? He leaned against the counter, enjoying this. Stella, you left a man who worshipped you for a man who wanted to ruin you. Congratulations, babe. You thought you were trading up? You were always just another conquest. George saw a queen. I saw an easy mark with daddy issues and a podcast. The room tilted. George was boring because he actually gave a damn about you. I'm exciting because I don't. You confused stability with imprisonment, so you ran straight into an actual cage. And you know the best part? He grabbed his keys off the counter. You can't even complain about it publicly without destroying the brand you built on choosing yourself. You chose this. You chose me. He left. Didn't come back for 3 days. No calls. No texts. I couldn't record episodes. My producer called twice. I let it go to voicemail, then texted him that I had the flu. Really? I was sitting on the bathroom floor googling narcissistic abuse and financial manipulation and staring at my own articles about these exact patterns. I'd become the cautionary tale I warned others about. On day 4, I was sitting in the apartment, his name on the lease, another thing I'd missed, when the mail came. I almost didn't check it. Bills I couldn't access, credit card statements for accounts I'd been locked out of. But there was something different. Heavy cardstock. Expensive weight. Cream-colored envelope with elegant calligraphy. I opened it. You are cordially invited to witness the marriage of Natasha Volkov and George. My hands went numb. The invitation slipped from my fingers, but I caught it before it hit the ground. Natasha Volkov, my best friend, the woman who held me through my divorce from George, the one who brought wine and tissues and rage, who called George suffocating and boring and said I was too vibrant for suburban mediocrity, who told me I deserved better, deserved passion, deserved more. She was marrying George. My George. I picked up the invitation with shaking hands and kept reading. The wedding was in 2 weeks. Saturday afternoon. Some historic estate I'd never heard of. And there, paper clipped to the invitation, was a small card with assigned seating. Stella, row 1, seat 3. My old married name. The one I'd dropped faster than I'd dropped the marriage. Front row. They wanted me there. They wanted me to watch him marry my best friend in the life I'd walked away from. The ceremony begins at 4 p.m. We hope you'll join us in celebrating new beginnings. Pride makes you do stupid things. I could have ignored the invitation. Could have claimed I was busy, out of town, dead. Instead, I booked a hair appointment and bought a dress I couldn't afford. Because somehow, in my broken logic, I convinced myself that showing up would prove something. That I was unbothered. That I'd moved on. That destroying my marriage had been worth it. All lies, obviously, but I was getting good at those. Clark barely noticed when I told him I had an event to attend. He was in the middle of closing a major deal which I now knew was code for literally anything else. I didn't tell him where I was going. He didn't ask. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Natasha. How she'd been there for everything. After I told George the first wanted a divorce, Natasha came over every single night for 2 weeks. We'd sit on my couch, the one George had picked out, that I'd later leave behind, and she'd pour wine while I cried. He's such a coward for not fighting for you, she'd said, refilling my glass. Maybe he just didn't love me enough, I'd whispered. Or maybe he's too comfortable, too passive. You deserve passion, Stella. You deserve someone who makes you feel alive. She'd squeezed my hand. George is a good man, but good isn't enough. You were right to leave. Every word had been gasoline on a fire I'd started myself. I'd introduced them once, years ago, at a barbecue. George had been polite. Natasha had barely acknowledged him. Seems nice, she'd said later. If you're into that whole stable, boring thing. Now she was marrying him. The venue was 40 minutes outside the city. Ashford Estate, rolling hills, gardens that looked like they'd been ripped from a period drama, the kind of place that costs more for one day than most people make in a year. I pulled up in my aging sedan between Range Rovers and Teslas. George and I had looked at venues like this once. Someday, he'd said, when we save enough. Apparently someday was now. Just not with me. I walked in wearing my armor, designer dress, Perfect hair, makeup that took an hour. I looked good. I needed to look good. The ceremony was outside. White chairs in perfect rows. String quartet playing something classical. 200 guests. Easy. I found my seat. Row 1. Right where they wanted me. The music changed. Everyone stood. George walked down the aisle first. Solo. No groomsmen. Just him. I forgot how to breathe. He looked different. Filled out. Shoulders broader. Like he'd been living in the gym. Hair slightly longer than he used to keep it. Styled back. A suit that actually fit properly. Not the department store ones he used to wear. But it was more than physical. He moved differently. Confident. Settled into himself in a way he never was with me. He walked past my row without looking at me. Not a glance. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement. That was intentional. He knew exactly where I was sitting. Then Natasha appeared at the end of the aisle. The dress. That dress. Vera Wang. Fitted bodice. Flowing skirt. Delicate lace sleeves. I'd shown George a picture of it 7 years ago from a bridal magazine. That's the one, I'd told him. Someday. He'd said we'd save for it. We never did. I'd worn a simple dress from a sample sale when we got married. Natasha was wearing my dream. She walked down that aisle like she owned it, and when she reached George, he looked at her like she'd invented sunlight. The officiant started talking. I stopped hearing words, just sounds, until Natasha began her vows. I promise to choose you every morning, in every ordinary moment, she said, voice clear and strong, because extraordinary isn't found in chaos, it's built in quiet consistency. My chest caved in. Those were my vows. The ones I'd written for George. The ones I'd recited 8 years ago, meaning none of them. She was saying them like scripture. And George was looking at her like she'd given him something precious. She'd taken my words and made them true. The reception blurred. I drank too much champagne. Watched them dance. Watched George laugh in a way I'd forgotten he could. Watched Natasha lean in and whisper something that made him kiss her forehead with such tenderness I had to look away. By midnight, I was alone at the hotel bar, scrolling through old photos on my phone like a masochist. I broke. Pulled up George's contact. Typed, "Do you ever miss me?" Sent it before I could stop myself. 3 dots appeared immediately. He was awake. Of course he was. It was his wedding night. A photo loaded. Them. First kiss as husband and wife. Close up. Intimate. Her hand on his face. His arms around her waist. Both of them smiling against each other's lips. Caption. Best decision I never made. Marrying you. I stared at that message until the screen went dark. Then I ordered another drink I didn't need and couldn't afford. At 4 a.m., I drove back to the apartment. Clark's apartment. The lights were off. He wasn't home. Probably wouldn't be for days. I climbed into bed still wearing my dress and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. When the knocking started at 7 a.m., aggressive and official, I thought it was building maintenance. I opened the door in yesterday's makeup and wrinkled designer dress. 2 men in suits. Badges already out. Stella Hendricks? I'm Agent Morrison, FBI. We have a warrant for the arrest of Clark Hendricks. We need to ask you some questions about your joint financial accounts. The floor dropped out from under me. Agent Morrison didn't wait for me to invite them in. He walked past me into the apartment, his partner following. Is your husband home, Mrs. Hendricks? I don't know where he is. My voice sounded far away. What's this about? Mr. Hendricks' company, Apex Crypto Solutions. Are you familiar with it? I know he runs it. I don't. I'm not involved in the business side. The agents exchanged a look. Morrison pulled out a tablet, turned it toward me. Bank statements, transaction records, my name next to Clark's on every single one. These are your joint accounts, correct? I nodded. We're investigating wire fraud, securities fraud, and operating an unlicensed money transmission business. In simpler terms, Mrs. Hendricks, your husband's company appears to be a Ponzi scheme. $18 million in investor funds, gone, transferred through accounts bearing your name. The room tilted. I didn't know. I didn't. He changed all the passwords. I don't even have access, but you did initially. Morrison's voice wasn't unkind, just factual. You open these accounts together. Sign the documents. Your signature is on file with 3 separate financial institutions. Because we were married, I thought, he said it was normal. We'll need you to come downtown. Answer some questions. You're not under arrest, but I strongly suggest you cooperate fully and obtain legal counsel. They found Clark 6 hours later. I know because I watched it on the news from a plastic chair at the FBI field office. A reporter standing outside the Riverside Hotel, camera crews everywhere. Clark being walked out in handcuffs, a blonde woman I'd never seen, maybe 22, crying in the background. The Chiron at the bottom of the screen, crypto CEO arrested in $18 million fraud scheme. Wife, relationship podcast host, under investigation. My phone started exploding. Texts, calls, emails. I turned it off. By the time I got home that night, after 8 hours of questions I mostly answered with I don't know my inbox at 839 new messages. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in public destruction. My podcast sponsors pulled out. All of them. The email from the network was professional and devastating. Given recent developments, we believe it's best to part ways. We'll be removing your episodes from our platform. 300 episodes. 5 years of work. Gone. Social media was worse. My Instagram comments became a war zone. She can't even keep her own life together. Fraud giving relationship advice. Maybe she should have stayed with George. That last one kept appearing. Different usernames. Same sentiment. I tried calling Natasha. Blocked. Tried George. Straight to voicemail. I went through my contacts, calling old friends, colleagues, anyone. Everyone was suddenly very busy. Clark's lawyer sent a message through the FBI. Distance yourself publicly. File for divorce immediately. Protect what's left of your reputation. What reputation? I started gathering documents for my own attorney, bank statements, emails, anything to prove I didn't know. That's when I found it buried in an old inbox folder. An email from George to Natasha. The timestamp, 10 months into our divorce proceedings. Subject line, case number 2024 DR 7843, my case number. I opened it. Read it 3 times before it sank in. Natasha, thank you for believing I deserve better. Today was hard, but your support means everything. G. Her response, you do deserve better, George, and I promise, I'll make sure you get it. Stay strong. N. Natasha had been George's divorce attorney. She sat across from me in mediation. Professional, cold, taking notes while George's lawyer, while she dismantled our marriage. She never mentioned it. Not once. Not during the late night wine sessions where she called George passive and boring. Not when she was convincing me I'd made the right choice. She'd been planning this the entire time. I kept digging, found more emails. Their relationship timeline constructed itself through professional correspondence that gradually became personal. 8 months in, coffee to discuss the case? 11 months, thank you for last night. I needed that conversation. 13 months, I can't stop thinking about you. 15 months, we should wait until everything is finalized. 17 months, 1 week after my divorce was final. Finally, I wanted to throw up. Instead, I opened Instagram. Masochist that I was. Natasha's latest post, from 3 days ago. A gorgeous craftsman bungalow with a wraparound porch and a swing. Flower boxes in the windows. Painted shutters. The house looked like something from a magazine. Caption, new chapter with my love. Home is wherever you are, George. I zoomed in on the address barely visible on the mailbox. 3839 Maple Grove Drive. My breath caught. 7 years ago, George and I had driven past a house. I'd made him stop. That one, I'd said. Someday, when we can afford it, I want that house. He'd taken a photo of it. Saved the address. I'll remember, he'd promised. We never could afford it. Now he'd bought it for Natasha. I closed the app, sat in the silence of Clark's apartment, the lease I wasn't on, the furniture I didn't pick, the life that was never actually mine. Then I remembered, when we moved in here, I'd thrown boxes in the closet without unpacking. Stuff from my old place, things I couldn't look at. I found the box in the back corner, taped shut, my handwriting on the side. George, don't open. I opened it. Underneath old photos and my original wedding ring, there were 3 letters. Thick envelopes. My name in George's handwriting. Postmarked during our divorce. I'd never had the courage to read them. I'd never even opened them. The first envelope was dated 1 week after I filed for divorce. I sat on the floor of the closet and opened it with shaking hands. 3 pages, front and back. George's handwriting, neat, controlled, the way he graded papers. Stella, I keep trying to understand what happened. Was I really that unbearable? That boring? I thought we were happy. I thought Sunday pancakes and bad puns and remembering your coffee order meant something. I would have changed anything if you just told me what you needed. But you didn't want me to change. You wanted me to be someone else entirely. I asked you once what passion meant to you. You said it was feeling alive. I asked what made you feel dead with me. You couldn't answer. Or wouldn't. Did I bore you so much that destroying me felt exciting? I hope it was worth it. I hope Clark makes you feel whatever I couldn't. I'm not angry. I'm just gone. George, I couldn't breathe right. The paper crumpled in my hands. The second letter. 2 months later. His handwriting steadier. Stella, I started therapy. Dr. Vance says I made you my entire world and lost myself in the process. That I stopped having opinions, stopped pursuing my own interests, stopped being a person outside of being your husband. He's probably right. I spent 5 years trying to be perfect for you, anticipating your needs, smoothing over every inconvenience. I thought that's what love was, making everything easy. Turns out I was making myself small, and you were suffocating. So thank you, really, for forcing me to rebuild, for showing me I deserve someone who chooses me intentionally, not someone who settles until something shinier shows up. I'm learning what I should have known all along. I'm worth more than being someone's comfortable option. Gee, that one hurt worse. He was growing, healing, without me. The third letter was short. 5 months after the divorce. 2 weeks before I married Clark. Stella, I heard you're getting married. Congratulations. I'm happy you found what you were looking for. I found my peace. I won't be writing again. Take care of yourself, Stella. I mean that. I hope he makes you feel alive. Gee, the date on the postmark, 1 week before he started dating Natasha. I sat there on the closet floor holding 3 letters that could have changed everything if I'd just had the courage to open them. I grabbed my phone, called George from a blocked number because I knew he wouldn't answer otherwise. He picked up on the 3rd ring. Hello? His voice. God. His voice. George. It's Stella. Silence. Then, how did you? Never mind. What do you want? I read your letters. All 3. I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything. About you. About us. About, Stella. He cut me off. Not angry. Tired. Don't. Please don't do this. I destroyed the best thing I ever had because you were looking for something I couldn't give you. And that's fine. You're allowed to want different things. But I've moved on. I'm happy. This call doesn't change anything. George, please, I have to go. I hope things work out with Clark. He hung up. I tried calling back. Blocked. The next morning, my podcast network sent the official termination email. Given recent circumstances and the current investigation, we're moving in a different direction. All content will be removed from our platform effective immediately. 5 years. Gone. I posted once on Instagram, taking time to reflect and heal. The comments came fast. Reflect on how you give advice you can't follow? Maybe listen to your own episodes. George dodged a bullet. I deleted the app. Clark's lawyer sent papers through his FBI liaison. He was claiming I knew about the fraud, had helped facilitate it. He was throwing me under the bus to cut years off his sentence. The man I destroyed my life for was actively trying to destroy what was left. Then Natasha posted a photo, ultrasound, black and white, tiny shape barely visible. Caption, our greatest adventure begins. Baby arriving June. They were having a baby. The family I always told George we'd have someday. Now it was her someday. George's comment, pinned at the top, luckiest man alive. I love you both already. I stared at that post until my vision blurred. Clark was in jail. My career was ashes. My best friend was pregnant with my ex-husband's baby, living in the house I'd wanted, wearing the dress I'd dreamed of, raising the family I'd postponed. I had nothing, but I had a microphone. One more time. I emailed my old producer. I want to do one final episode. Live, unfiltered, no edits, no PR spin, just the truth. Will you help me? 3 minutes later. When? I typed back, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. It's time people heard what happens when you take your own advice and it destroys you. His response, I'll set it up. Stella, you sure about this? I had nothing left to lose. The studio was smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just gotten smaller. My producer, Troy, who'd been with me since episode 1, set up the equipment with careful silence. No small talk. No pep talk. He knew what this was. 8 p.m. I sat down in front of the microphone. No makeup. Hair in a messy bun. Wearing jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. Ready? Troy asked from the booth. I nodded. The red light came on. Real talk with Stella. Final episode. My voice cracked. I cleared my throat. Let's talk about what happens when you ignore your own advice and blow up your life for an illusion. I told them everything. The affair with Clark. How I'd convinced myself George was the problem when really, I was just bored with myself. The divorce. The gaslighting. The fraud. Natasha's betrayal? Or was it betrayal when I'd handed her the opening? But most importantly, I owned it. George didn't fail me. I failed him. I failed myself. I built a career telling women to choose passion over stability, and I genuinely believed it. But I confused excitement with substance. I thought feeling something, anything, was better than feeling content. Turns out, contentment isn't boring. It's just not dramatic enough for someone who needs chaos to feel real. I talked about the letters I never opened. The wedding I attended like a self-flagellation ritual. The house George bought for Natasha. The one I'd pointed out 7 years ago. You know what the worst part is? George tried to warn me. The night I asked for a divorce, he said, if you're chasing excitement, you'll eventually catch exhaustion. I laughed at him, called him dramatic. He was right about everything. 43 minutes. No edits. No script. When I finished, Troy came out of the booth. That's going to get attention. It did. The episode went viral within hours. Not because people felt sorry for me, because I didn't ask them to. The comments were split between people appreciating the accountability and people saying it was too little, too late. I didn't care anymore. It wasn't for them. It was for me. Clark got sentenced 3 weeks later. 6 years federal prison, full restitution ordered. The investigation cleared me, proved I had no knowledge of the scheme. My lawyer handed me the divorce papers at the courthouse. You're free, she said. I didn't feel free. I felt empty. But empty is better than full of poison. I took a job at a youth mentoring nonprofit. Administrative work. Filing, scheduling, answering phones. Nothing glamorous. Nobody recognized me, or if they did, they were kind enough not to mention it. I deleted all social media, sold everything from my Clark era, furniture, clothes, jewelry, moved to a studio apartment in a neighborhood I could actually afford, started real therapy, not to fix what happened, but to understand why I'd needed to destroy something good to feel alive. 6 months later, I was at Powell's Books buying a journal, my therapist's suggestion, when I turned a corner and nearly walked into someone. George. He was holding a book. What to expect the first year. We both froze. Stella. Not cold, not warm, just acknowledgement. George. I swallowed. Congratulations. On the baby. Thanks. Silence stretched between us. The kind that used to feel comfortable and now felt like a chasm. I'd rehearsed this in therapy. Knew what I needed to say. I'm sorry. Truly. Not sorry that things didn't work out. That's selfish. I'm sorry I hurt you because I was empty inside and thought chaos would fill it. You deserved better than me. You deserved someone who knew your worth. George looked at me for a long moment. I know I did. I found it. Not cruel. Just honest. I hope you find what actually makes you happy. Not what makes you feel something. What makes you happy. There's a difference. He walked past me. I didn't turn around. That night, I saw Natasha posted another ultrasound. A girl. They were naming her June. I sent a baby gift to their address. Anonymously. A handmade quilt from a local artist. No card. Just a small gesture of letting go. Clark served his time. I never visited. 18 months after the final episode, I was sitting on the fire escape of my studio apartment with my journal. No husband. No best friend. No podcast. But for the first time in years, I wasn't performing. Wasn't pretending. I was just here. My phone buzzed. Email from Troy. Documentary producer wants to option your story. Interested? I stared at it for a long moment. Then deleted it. Maybe someday I'll tell this story again. But not today. Today, I'm learning how to exist without needing to be the most interesting person in the room. George moved on. Natasha moved on. Clark's moving on to his next cell block. Me? I'm learning what I should have learned years ago. The person you betray most when you chase someone else's life is yourself. And that's the only relationship advice I've got left. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.